Hello and welcome back to the Agenda podcast here on the Blood Red channel. I'm your host, Edward Kay, and I'm joined today by Keifer MacDonald. And yes, instead of just talking about him for 5 minutes on every podcast and apologising for bringing him up again, we are just going to do a podcast on Jude Bellingham today. I think it's basically impossible to scroll down any sort of Sky Sports or Twitter newsfeed now without seeing anything about him and Liverpool. But I think the latest thing I saw was Sky Sports reporting that he is going to be Liverpool's number one summer target. I'm not sure that's the biggest scoop in the world. I think we all knew that. But it certainly seems that way, at least. And Liverpool, obviously normally known for keeping transfers under wraps and being quite tight-lipped about things. Even Jurgen Klopp's not really denying it in interviews now. He seems to answer questions about it quite a lot. How far on the, you're likely to unlikely Bellingham to Liverpool barometer, which seems to change every day, how far along are you, Keifer?
Well, it's certainly an interesting one, isn't it? Because as you say, you can't go 5 minutes without kind of hearing his name associated with Liverpool or Jordan Henderson or Trent Alexander-Arnold in some capacity. So, kind of everywhere you look at the moment, Jude Bellingham's name is there. In terms of Liverpool's likelihood of signing him, I think, to be honest, as everyone knows, I think they've got as good a chance as anyone. If you think the main competitors are probably Real Madrid, yes, potentially, you've got the financial kind of capacity of Manchester City if they want to have a say in the conversation. But reports yesterday that Manchester United have kind of fallen behind in that sense. So you would kind of think it is potentially a two-way shootout, like I say, potentially a three-way shootout if Manchester City are going to get involved, and why would they not after everything we've all seen this winter from Bellingham in Qatar? But we've done some long reads about him. Paul Gorst did one earlier this week, and basically just saying how far Liverpool's interest dates back, and obviously they've done a lot of the legwork, and he came to Kirby as an under-11s player for Birmingham on a 2-day trial at the academy. Then it was at that point his parents decided not to relocate to Merseyside. So I think Liverpool have got as good a chance as anyone, really, because they have done that groundwork, and there has been previous interest there, and obviously it has just happened that he's kind of exploded over the last kind of what feels like the last 10 days. Obviously he has done really well while he's been in Borussia Dortmund, but this has really been the making of him. If you want to compare it to a greater extent of kind of Michael Owen at the World Cup in '98, like goal scored against Argentina, it feels like that. This is Bellingham's moment. So I think Liverpool, they'll be there or thereabouts in the conversation. And I think now with kind of everything that's been said, with Trent Alexander-Arnold, with Jordan Henderson, and all the kind of jokey kind of relationships that they've been having, I think you've only got to have a stronger feeling that maybe, it's natural. They are players, they are humans at the end of the day. Obviously, some conversation, is going to be had there, and hopefully, Liverpool can get it over the line and kind of, pit the likes of Real Madrid. And obviously, we'll touch on factors that might persuade, Liverpool to maybe be in the driving seat, obviously later on. But yeah, I think they've got as good a chance as anyone.
Yeah, you've brought me straight on to something I wanted to ask you about, which is all the videos, the images you're seeing of Trent and Jordan Henderson, sticking to Bellingham like glue, seemingly. A lot of people on Twitter obviously talking about Agent Trent, Agent Hendo. They really do seem to be getting everyone's hopes up, but how aware of what they're doing do you really think they are? They're whipping us up seemingly on Twitter into a bit of a fever pitch now, especially with recent interactions. They see the celebrations. Like, how much do you think it factors into their thinking when they're doing things like this? How fans are going to perceive it?
I think obviously there is an element of they do know what they're doing. In terms of one recent example is obviously the photo that Trent Alexander-Arnold put on Instagram last week, I think it was, or Twitter, or both of them, kind of, they're having a stroll around Qatar on one of the days off. I think it was after the Wales game, after they obviously qualified for the round of 16. And, I think the caption was "chilling with my bro" or something like that. And, whilst it can be harmless and obviously a bit of fun, I think obviously, Trent Alexander-Arnold probably knew what he was doing when he clicked the share button. But obviously we know even before Liverpool's interest has been, really, really concrete in terms of, the past maybe, 6 to 8 months, where his name has been, really the forefront of every transfer conversation. We know that obviously last year at the Euros and prior to that, when he made his England debut in late 2020, Henderson obviously had taken him to his wing, under his wing, and there had been a relationship established between the two. And I don't think I think for Henderson's part, I don't think any of that is to maybe gain at club level. Maybe now that relationship might, turn into a bit more, a friendly kind of close-knit one in terms of, are you joining Liverpool kind of thing. But I think at the time, Henderson is, I think maybe people are seeing that now, but he is obviously a model professional. He's probably been the most, off the top of my head, and he's probably been the most successful English midfielder at club level over the last 5-6 years. And you only have to look at what he's won with Liverpool and kind of how integral he has been to obviously Champions League and Premier League winning sides. So I think as Jude Bellingham coming into that set up at St George's Park, there's no reason why he wouldn't gravitate towards a Jordan Henderson, because we know his eagerness to kind of propel himself to the heights of world football. And to do that, you do need the discipline and the kind of commitment that Jordan Henderson has displayed over his career and especially at Liverpool. So for someone like Jude Bellingham, he's the perfect mentor really. But like I say, obviously the dynamic of that relationship kind of as the transfer links kind of intensify, obviously will alter and change. But I don't think Henderson would be doing it. I don't think he's doing all this because I just listened to something there that Bellingham did with the Lions Den segment they do every day, and he just said the celebration between the two was completely unplanned, completely natural. That's not something you'd plan. Oh, if you set me up in the World Cup, we'll do this, we'll do that, which is it just kind of shows that the relationship that is there is a natural one. It's two lads who obviously love football and obviously are proud to represent the country, and obviously given the feat they achieved the other night, by assisting one another and obviously scoring in the round of 16 of a World Cup, it's every lad's dream really. So I think obviously there's similarities there, as there will be with all the lads in the England squad. I think that's one thing to point out. It is certainly in my lifetime, it's probably the most close-knit England squad that has been. Everyone looks like they enjoy being there, and you hear the likes of Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, Gary Neville, Wayne Rooney even saying that during their playing careers, England wasn't the place it once was. Players of different sides would sit on different tables and eat their meals separately. It was all very like Manchester United here, Liverpool there, Arsenal there. Whereas now there's plenty of them who seem like best friends. So I think that obviously plays a massive factor. But like I say, there's no reason why Jude Bellingham wouldn't want to interact with someone, and again, even someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold, who has experienced a similar kind of trajectory. I read something this morning that Adam Lallana said, and he said that Bellingham's rise to stardom reminds him of Trent Alexander-Arnold's, in terms of bursting onto the scene, if you want to call it that, at the age of 18 and kind of winning every honour in the game by 24. So as well as maybe having a bit of a joke and a laugh there, I think there's certainly plenty for Bellingham to learn, which is understandable.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, I'm not sure that celebration was planned. It looked pretty natural, and if I'm honest, I'm not sure Jordan Henderson's got quite a prolific enough record to be planning celebrations when he scores goals. But were Bellingham to decide to join Liverpool and come and play alongside Jordan Henderson, obviously we've seen how well that balance has worked with them two in the England midfield. How well do you think he'd fit in at Liverpool? Does balance even come into it with a player who seems so individually so perfectly balanced? He's got composure beyond his years. He just seems to have everything. How well do you think he would fit in at Liverpool?
Oh, he'd fit like a glove, and I think that's obviously a testament to kind of his skill set that he's acquired and obviously demonstrated, and obviously particularly in kind of recent weeks with England. We've seen him play that role, that kind of retracted role of the striker in kind of a number 10. We've also seen him playing it in a 2. We've seen him play on the left. And obviously the other night he played alongside Henderson in front of Rice in a more free roaming, number 8 kind of role. And we saw, he was prolific down the left, wasn't he? Obviously he gets the assist there for Henderson's, but, just his intelligence and, his ability to pick up positions in half spaces and drive with the ball. I mean, he's got everything that you'd want from a midfielder. And I think obviously the other night was, again, the reason it was quite telling is because, playing with someone sitting, in the sense that, Declan Rice did, was maybe a similar capacity he would play at Anfield. You'd have Fabinho behind him. So to kind of almost, to kind of almost have that kind of dress rehearsal almost, or audition in that left-sided number 8 role, which, you look at Thiago, who's playing there at the minute. He's 32, I think, going on 33. So, he's not going to be around forever as good as he is. And obviously we all know that he does struggle to play games back to back. And obviously the injuries that he has, that have, plagued his career almost. So, I think if you could pick him up, and it's the same for Rice as well. I know he's not a topic of conversation, but he's another player you could drop into this Liverpool side, and you think they would improve it tenfold. And that's not a sly on Fabinho at all, but like I said, Bellingham, he's just got everything. He's just imperious, isn't he? When he gets on the ball, he's someone who gets you off your seat. And like I say, his skill set is so versatile. Obviously, there's a story about why he wears number 22 in terms of what, dating back to his Birmingham days. They said, he's a number 10, he's a number 8. And if my maths is correct, he's a number 4 as well. So, he can play all those kind of different positions. And like I say, for the money as well, which has obviously been talked about, 150 million euros is the kind of latest report from Germany. Even, if he was 25, you'd probably argue that it's worth it. But the fact that he's 19, and you've arguably got a midfielder there for 15 years. And if you don't, the resale value is going to be high if he was to leave in, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years or at the end of a contract or whatever. So I just think it makes absolutely perfect sense. And like I say, he certainly hasn't lowered his chances of securing a move, as he with the kind of the displays he's put on. He's scary, as I said to you earlier. You speak to people about Michael Owen and that goal he scored against Argentina at France '98. I can only imagine this is similar to that. Obviously, with social media, the kind of hype is obviously intensified. But for a 19-year-old, a teenager to do what he's doing and kind of drag England as he has done into the knockout stages at times when they haven't been great. I think he's just everything you'd want in a midfielder. So yeah, I think you'd slot in perfectly to this midfield, to the Liverpool midfield, and obviously he offers goals as well, which is something you can argue as lacked at times in recent years, with Liverpool maybe taking a more conservative approach and kind of allowing the front three or front four maybe to kind of take that burden. But if you can get goals from midfield, goals and assists is what wins your games at the end of the day. So exactly, everything you want in a midfielder.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned how well he plays with Declan Rice as well. Obviously, current ownership situation, it probably wouldn't ever happen at present, but depending on where Liverpool are in the summer, who knows if they go out and buy Bellingham and a Rice. But that is being a bit ambitious depending on takeover situations, obviously. And as we mentioned, at present, reports are Dortmund are expecting somewhere between 100 and 150 million for him. Could Liverpool at present afford that fee and wages? Obviously, you look at when Núñez came in, it was Mane had left, and that was what allowed us to bring Núñez in and give Salah that bumper contract. Do you think it'd be a case of Liverpool being able to bring him in without letting anybody else go, or would somebody have to go to make way, do you think?
Well, you think that, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita are, in the final now 8 months or 7 months of their Liverpool deals. They expire at the end of June. So from the 1st of July, they are free agents. From the start of next month, they can both negotiate with overseas sides on a pre-contract agreement. So I think now, if you were to kind of hedge your bets, you'd probably suggest that both of them, will be walking out of the Anfield door at the end of the season. And obviously remains to be seen kind of what happens with James Milner. But if I was to take an estimate between Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita, that's easily £250,000 a week in wages spared if they are to leave and not renew their deals. Might be slightly more than 250 million, but 250,000 a week. But that is probably the base mark that they're probably both taking home about just 125 each, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. But that's a wage that would more than cover what Bellingham is going to be earning. Especially I think at Dortmund he'd probably be on 60, 70 at the minute at most. He's on his first contract. He signed as a prodigy from the Championship. He's not going to be on much more than that, if at all anymore. So I think in terms of wages, I think you can almost sort that in house. I think obviously the ownership situation and kind of what is happening obviously does have an impact, because if there is going to be a full sale. But FSG have said, Mike Gordon said it is going to be business as usual, and that obviously relates to January, and we'd imagine further down the line that relates to the summer as well. But as you say, reports coming out of Germany this week, 150 million euros, which obviously is a lot. But as I said earlier, Madrid have said that they won't risk the economic stability of the club to pursue Bellingham at that 150 million pound mark. So that would, whether that is them trying to bluff Dortmund, who knows? But if you look at the finances behind it, having signed Tchouaméni, last summer, having signed Camavinga the summer before, having signed Hazard 2 years before that. They're currently doing the Bernabeu extension up, the renovation, which at the moment is, I think, down as about 750 million euros. And I think the reports are that they are asking for another loan, which in a worst case scenario would take the development cost just over 1 billion euros as a worst case. So reports in Spain are saying that they are going to be asking for another loan, which would suggest, and if you kind of put the pieces together, why they're not willing to sacrifice the stability of the club. Again, whether that is them bluffing, who knows? But it does kind of all add up. You have got to think we're only just, whether people like it or not, we're only just coming out of the coronavirus pandemic and kind of the impact that it's had on clubs in the last 2-3 years. Transfer windows. Okay, maybe the summer was the first one, but they're still getting back to normal. It's still a volatile market, especially for selling clubs. So if Madrid are showing their hand and saying, we're not going to pursue that top kind of echelon of 150 million euros, it obviously gives Liverpool a free run, if you like. Like I say, obviously Manchester City could probably cough that money up, so could PSG. But from everything Bellingham said so far, it would sound like a club with the kind of values and philosophy as Liverpool has, in terms of he's said on record a few times that he wants to give people memories and he doesn't want to just play for money and not that playing for PSG and Manchester City couldn't, but if you think which club kind of epitomizes making memories and kind of ingraining yourself into a fan base, it's Liverpool Football Club. It's playing at Anfield. It's it's being the face of those big European nights. So I think when you look at it that way, and like I say, the potential departures of Naby, Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain, add a potential James Milner to that, who obviously signed the 1-year contract in the summer. Again, who's probably on, I imagine, maybe have taken a pay cut in the summer, maybe something of £100,000 a week. So, you have got the wages there to kind of offer Bellingham a lucrative deal. And the thing is, he's not going to be coming in on, £250,000 a week. If you think how much it took Salah to get that, that was his third contract at Liverpool. He signed the initial one, then he signed one in 2018, and then obviously got the extension last summer. Players have to work their way up. They're not just handed these lucrative deals. The same with Van Dijk. So I'd suspect, he's not going to come in on a massive wage. So Liverpool can afford that. It's just kind of who else is in the market. But like I say, it sounds like the player would be up for the move, which is obviously the first and foremost important thing of any transfer. Dortmund, it seems, have maybe accepted that. I think the CEO said last week they won't be handing out any gifts to Liverpool, but if he was to join a Premier League club, Liverpool will be the preferred one. So it sounds like everything is kind of coming together nicely. Obviously, this Winter World Cup seems to have worked in Liverpool's favour with if you want to call them agents, Henderson and Alexander-Arnold. So I think, like I say, there's plenty that aligns, and it kind of says that Liverpool are the strongest currently. You have the strongest hand for Bellingham. But obviously, as we know in football, a lot can change in the next six months or 7 months until kind of that summer window does open. But like I say, there is plenty aligning, which would tell you that Liverpool are in a very, very strong position. And obviously, as I touched on at the top of the show, obviously they've done their due diligence in terms of inviting him to the club as a under-11s player on trial. Obviously, the family decided not to relocate in the end, which is obviously a decision that has been proven to be the right one. Would Bellingham have been the star he is now if he had to work his way up for a club like Liverpool? Would he have been handed the same opportunities? You maybe, who knows? But certainly can't have any regrets about turning down Liverpool. But obviously, those at Anfield and those at the academy were obviously big fans of him. And obviously now, 7-8 years later, they've obviously got the opportunity to finally get their hands on him. And you've just got to hope that the kind of disturbance and kind of the change in the guard with obviously a new sporting director coming in, you've just got to hope that doesn't disrupt any of the foundations, maybe, if you want to call them that have previously been laid out. You just got to hope that it's as smooth as possible come the summer.
Yeah, you mentioned a player there that brings up something I wanted to speak to you about. Naby Keita, obviously, when Liverpool agreed the transfer for Naby Keita, obviously they agreed it basically a year in advance. Do you think there's any chance Liverpool will be looking to get something tied up in January ahead of him maybe joining the club in the summer? Obviously, Dortmund have made it clear that he's not going to be leaving until the summer. But do you think there's anything to be said for Liverpool, trying to get something tied up in January with all the competition around trying to get him?
Potentially. I mean, the other side of that is, as you would have in a normal World Cup, is that January is then going to be the spike, arguably where he's playing. He's at his peak price, if you want to call it that. He'll obviously been 19 years old. He will have played. You'd imagine. Obviously, we'll probably play against France this weekend. You feel like if England do get past France, they've got as good a chance as anyone as reaching the final. They'll probably play a team like Brazil. But they've got a good chance as anyone as kind of winning the competition if they do knock out the reigning champions. So you think if he was to be the poster boy that comes out of the World Cup as having helped England win their first World Cup in 60 odd years, his price is going to be astronomical. So maybe that's not the best way to negotiate. Whereas I'm sure Liverpool wouldn't mind paying a premium to secure his services like they did with Naby Keita. It might be when his price is at absolute peak. So maybe a summer deal as well. And I'm sure, we're not stupid. I'm sure there will have been talks. I'm sure there will have been inquiries in the summer. Jurgen Klopp said during the summer that the only problem with Jude Bellingham was that he isn't for sale. Whether that means Liverpool had inquired previously, who knows? Interpret those comments how you want. But, I would be very surprised if there hasn't already been phone calls between Liverpool and Dortmund over Bellingham over the last, 6, 7, 8 months. As I say, he's been a Liverpool. He's not someone who's just come on the radar with a lot of the top clubs. We know that they were all aware of Bellingham while he was playing in the England youth setups. While he was, making a name for himself at Birmingham City during the 2019-20 season. So while it would be, brilliant if Liverpool were able to pull off such a deal, I would just have reservations again for Dortmund. Why would they? For them, they'll want to keep him as much as anyone. He's got a contract till 2025. They've previously said they still have hope of keeping him. I don't think they would bow maybe in January. Again, if he's coming off his peak and then he has another brilliant 4 or 5 months, leads them to a cup success or whatever, they go on a run in the Champions League. Sure, that's going to be, again, more money in their pocket. So why they take a reduced fee now? But who knows? Like I say, I'm sure Liverpool will be exploring every possible scenario, because in the sense that Naby Keita won in 2017, obviously that caught everyone by surprise at the time. It seemed like there was no impasse in, the negotiations had reached an impasse in terms of, I think they wanted 70 million at the time, and Liverpool kind of said, look, you can have him for another year, we'll pay just over 50, and that kind of worked for both parties. So obviously there is that kind of nous of being able to, pull off a deal, and obviously they will be aware of it. But I just think it's like when people said in the summer, would they do it then? Well, why would they? If they're going to commence a bidding more in the summer, which is the kind of the ultimate aim for Dortmund, you're going to want him to play and kind of have another 6 months at the top, and then obviously kind of see where his fee lies and kind of what his end of the season looks like. But I'm sure he won't be. I'm sure his price won't fluctuate too much. Put it that way. I mean, what he's done in the World Cup so far has been absolutely unbelievable, and it's not something new. I mean, I can't say I watch loads of Dortmund, but whenever I've kind of watched in the Champions League and those big games against Manchester City, he's always held his own. He's always performed for England. So it's not like people were just basing their kind of opinion of him on the World Cup. They had been aware of him beforehand, and they will be aware of him after. And they will, teams, up and down the country and around Europe will be trying to kind of steal a march on one another in order to kind of line up that deal. Like I say, you just got to hope that kind of everything Liverpool have done so far, and kind of the situations around the ownership and the situations around players leaving, you just got to hope that they kind of all work in Liverpool's favour and they are able to kind of strike the iron and secure a deal.
Yeah, it certainly seems like things might be in Liverpool's favour at the moment, but who knows what'll be the situation in summer when that inevitable bidding war does start. But that's all we've got time for on the agenda here today. Keifer, thanks for joining me. Hopefully that's enough Jude Bellingham content to scratch everyone's itch until we inevitably talk about him on the next podcast anyway. But until then, from me and Keifer, it's goodbye for now.